Hey y'all, I'm ready to dig in again with the Psalm 91 and can hardly wait to share with you some things. Thank you so much for bearing with me yesterday with Joseph, who was demandant of my attention. But I do pray the Holy Spirit, well, I know He did. He got His point across and that you were ministered to, and you still got your definitions and scriptures. The basis of what I wanted to share with you yesterday was that deliverance of the Lord, and that the redemptive thread throughout the Bible, and that it is constantly about His love and His work and His redeeming and delivering us from evil. I want to talk today about pestilence and noisome again. One thing that I mentioned about noisome is that it's harmful and that it is offensive to the senses, especially to the sense of smell. Well, when I read that, I immediately thought there are places in the Bible where it talks about offerings being a sweet smell to the Father, and things that were a foul smell or a stench to the Father. And so in this, when we're looking at this Psalm 91, particularly this verse, and redeeming redemptive work of Jesus, in that He delivered us from the noisome pestilence, the noisome harmful pestilence, or offensive to the senses, particularly in smell, that we would be a stench before the Father, that our filthy rags would be noisome before Him. And that pestilence is a plague, destruction, death. And you remember John 10:10, that the thief, the enemy of your soul, comes only to kill, steal, and destroy. That destruction is his end game. That this pestilence, it's highly injurious, it's destructive, and it is death. So some definitions of a plague, because I want us to get here. I want us to get there. I want us to get these things. A plague is disastrous evil or affliction, infestation, an outbreak. And what I think about with a plague and this pestilence, and even if you go back and you read about the plagues of Egypt, that the pestilence that came, they were moving. It was not they came and stayed right here. They engulfed everything. They took everything. They killed, brought destruction everywhere they went. They were not stagnant. They were moving. And so in looking at this noisome pestilence, this harmful pestilence, this offensive smell of destruction and death, covered mankind. You know, in the Garden of Eden, there was nothing that was untouched by the curse, by transgression, the curse of the law, right? Which we read yesterday in Galatians 3:13, that of course Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law, taking our place, or being made a curse for us. So this noisome pestilence is the smell of death. It is the chasm of destruction, desire of wickedness, which leads to destruction. And you remember that hava that we talked about in the beginning is that death, this noisome, which is translated from the Hebrew. It is desire in a bad sense. That it would be those desires of the flesh which would lead to destruction, that engulfing ruin and chasm. So we will see in Psalm 91 a few verses later, so we're not quite there yet, but the word pestilence is used again, but it's not noisome pestilence again. It's a different, it's described differently. So this particular use of pestilence, from everything that I'm reading and pulling and discovering of this noisome, I believe that this is, and then you tie that in with the fowler's snare, the bait layer, the one who is after you and I, who is the hunter, the enemy of our souls, that he lays the bait. And this noisome pestilence, which would be our desire, our evil desires, or the sin nature, or flesh without Christ, that noisome, the chasm, engulfing ruin, destruction, okay, that he would deliver us from the noisome pestilence, that Jesus Christ himself would snatch us from the noisome pestilence. And if we go back, we'll close here, rereading that John 10 that we looked at earlier in the week, or last week. Sorry, I should have had that one marked. That my Father who has given them to me is greater and mightier than all else, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. That we have been put into the Father's hand, and he delivers us out of the fowler's snare and the noisome, the harmful, destructive pestilence, death. All right, we'll pick up here tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye, y'all.